to the boardroom. This is the business of esports. As the prophet of esports, I rely on trustworthy and meaningful data every day. Data from our research partner YouGov offers the most complete view of esports fans and gamers in the world, providing context to who they are, what they think, the brands they buy, and things they do. YouGov's connected insights and research services inform strategy at every level. If you're a team, a brand, agency, or rights holder, you should be talking with YouGov. Their partners measure and maximize ROI and are telling compelling stories with data. Visit yougov.com/gaming-esports to learn more. From the keyboard to the boardroom, this is the Business of Esports weekly news show / post-podcast live stream. I am Paul Dewalibi. I'm joined by my friends and co-hosts, Lindsay the Boss Poss, Jeff the Juice Cohen, and the Honorable Jimmy Barada, Jimmy the Judge. Thanks to Adam for the suggestion. I think we're sticking with it. For those of you who are new here, welcome. What we do here is we cover all the gaming and esports topics and news of the week. We look at all of it through a business and C-suite lens. We dissect, we analyze the business implications of everything happening in the industry. But best of all, we get to do it live with you guys. We cover all the stuff that doesn't make it into the podcast these days. And you get to ask us questions, get in our faces. We welcome it. So if you're here, if you're lurking, that's okay. But it's a safe space. We encourage you to get involved. So let us know that you're here so we can say hello. Lindsay, how you doing this week?
I'm doing so
I'm not even offering the question up to everyone anymore. It's just
I appreciate it.
Nice glasses, Lindsay. Are those Gamers Advantage?
They're not. These are different. I think I have around 6 pairs of blue light glasses now, but I will say the Gamer Advantage ones are my favorite. These are just mixing it up, you know? But yeah, been a great week. Had a great episode drop yesterday for the Meta Woman podcast that everyone should go listen to. Had a lot of fun talking to Cecile Matthews. She runs a coaching platform, a lot of entrepreneurship stuff. So now we all get to plug things. It's good.
I love, Lindsay, the shameless plug right at the start of the show.
Oh, yeah. If you're going to ask me how my week is, and my podcast drops on Tuesday, and you're asking me on Wednesday, I'll just,
This is true.
I'll do the plug every week.
Everyone should go listen to episode 2 of Meta Woman, even if you're not a woman. It is a incredibly insightful podcast, and the guests are awesome. And it's a huge success already, so everyone should get on board and go listen to it. By the way, you can get it everywhere you get your podcast. So Apple Podcasts, Google Play, just about everywhere. Jimmy, Jeff, how you guys doing?
Great. I'm drinking my hot chocolate with the spoon.
This was your opportunity.
Jeff had to make his hot chocolate. I want everyone to know.
Can we have Red Bull energy and not hot chocolate energy here, please?
No, this hot chocolate was sent to me by the Philadelphia Eagles, sponsor of ours.
Can we talk about the biggest news this week that's not gaming news? First of all, congrats to Max Verstappen.
Congratulations
I just had to get that in there.
Broken heart.
For anyone who watched F1, although I do believe F1 esports are also awesome. Guys, just a little teaser before we jump into a whole bunch of news this week, because there's a lot of news to get through, including everyone's favorite chair review segment, which we're also going to do this week. It seems we've got a chair literally every single week to talk about. Jimmy, what were you going to say?
I thought we were going to talk about the chair you're sitting in. What is that?
No. This is not nothing special. This is not my normal chair. But we had on the podcast this week, guys, Kevin Caldwell, who's the CEO of Evolved Play. They're doing some awesome things around a platform for I'll call it an ed tech platform, but it's really a game that encourages learning and really involves kids and their parents simultaneously. And I think it was a fascinating sort of hour-long conversation with him. The coolest part is Kevin used to be at Activision Blizzard and also at Riot and also at EA, right, Jimmy? So he literally has probably
I was
one of
nodding
the most
my head.
extensive...
I'm sorry, Paul. It's nodding my head. I forgot so many people listen. Nodding my head. Yes. Yes.
Literally one of the most extensive backgrounds I've seen of just about anyone in the gaming industry, and has touched so many big game developers, obviously. And so his views on game development and their approach with education in gaming, I think, is fascinating. I hope you guys enjoy that show tomorrow. Let me just get caught up before I jump into some topics here on all the comments here. Roman says, I just have one comment and one question for tonight. Judge Jimmy is the perfect bane for our beloved Jimmy Juicer. His questions are always amazing. Roman, on that, we on this week's podcast episode, we did another segment of Judge Jimmy's cross-examination. So every week, Judge Jimmy is going to be asking the guests 5 questions that are not related to gaming and esports, and they're a lot of fun. Roman says, did the professor get too busy for the show? I miss him and his heroes references. Roman, he's not. Something to look forward to is the professor, like Lindsay and like Jeff, is getting his own show, which you can, I'm hoping we will announce any week now. And so you will have that to look forward to. And it will be filled with heroes references, I'm sure. So you're going to get more of the professor, not less. Matt says, don't worry, I'm here. Matt, we wouldn't have started without you. Glad you guys didn't start with me. Roman, we wouldn't have started without you either. And Chris says, Paul got that Kermit intro energy with those hands. I do talk with my hands, Chris. Matt says, this is the best gaming chair review show on the internet. It's the only one, Matt. It's the most comprehensive by far. I don't know what you're talking about. Adam says, greetings, Your Honor. Where is Mr. Roblox?
Pour one out for the Roblox.
The Roblox. Roman says, yay. Yeah, actually, it's going to be a fun show, Roman. I have like a first cut of the first episode, and I think you guys, fans of the professor, are definitely going to like it. It's very much in character, which I think is going to be fun. Roman says, have a great show, guys. I got to go already. Roman, thank you for stopping by. We appreciate it. All right, guys, we have lots of news to get through here. Lots. I was debating, do we start with something serious or not? Because there's some silly news this week and there's some serious news. I want to talk about, though, I think the best place to start, in my mind, is NZXT. And for those who don't know, NZXT is a hardware manufacturer, so they do like computer cases, they do computer hardware, they do accessories. Like they have sort of a range of products very similar to like a Corsair. And what I thought was interesting, because typically we haven't heard of the hardware manufacturers raising money. And so let me share this story here, because the headline is NZXT raises $100 million for PC gaming hardware and gaming lifestyle brand. NZXT, according to the article, founded in 2004. They raised $100 million. Francisco Partners led the round. They're based in California. They're going to use it, according to this, for strategic expansion. The CEO said the boom in gaming came from the lockdowns, also led to a boom in sales of PC gaming rigs and other associated gear. And they've never taken on an investor. So since 2004, they've never raised any outside capital. This will literally be the first investment to bring on more talent, expand their product offering, etc. They also had Kevin Lin invest in this round, co-founder of Twitch. Patrick Lee, co-founder of Rotten Tomatoes. James Lin, the co-founder of Crunchyroll. Eddie Hartman, the co-founder of LegalZoom. Like the list goes on and on. Kevin Ma, the founder of Hypebeast. So like a very long list of very well-known people in the tech and gaming world, and it's $100 million round for a hardware company. I mean, do I need to put up the profit was right when it comes to these, when I said we need to pay attention to the gaming hardware businesses? What do you guys think of this? Jeff, Lindsay, do you have thoughts?
I'm surprised I'm shocked this is their first round being a hardware business, and having been around since 2004. I mean, that's pretty wild to have been around that long and not have to do an investment round, especially hardware, because it's just capital intensive to build things. So that's my initial thought. Kudos to you for being right. I do think, gaming hardware has been a hot category. Question is, was there so much pull forward during the pandemic? I think we have seen some of the kind of gaming hardware stocks pull back. We did a story a few weeks ago about, forget the company, but they were getting, they had kind of been beaten up and were potentially being taken private. Which one was that? Was it
Razer?
Didn't remember. Razer.
Razer.
Yeah,
Right.
So I think Logitech stock prices kind of come off a bit. So is it sort of like the best is kind of behind them?
Can I just mention one thing, Jeff, to a point you raised? In the article, it says, it's quoting the CEO, okay? And he says, when I mentioned hardware, 70% of the VCs would run away. And when I said PC, another 70% of the remaining people would run for the hills. So, like, to your point about, I'm surprised they've never raised, like, maybe it wasn't by choice either, right? Lindsay, I don't know if you have thoughts on NZXT.
When I saw this, I actually also thought about Razer, and I thought about how Razer has moved into creating some more lifestyle products, and we've talked about how even if those aren't really successful, it's at least kind of a dip in the water, and they're trying their hand at it. The only thing that makes me nervous about this fundraising is the amount, just because there's not a lot of hardware brands that currently have a ton of lifestyle things out there. And like with a company like Razer, you can kind of test things out and do sort of fun runs of things like caffeine gum and finger gloves and all of that stuff without really too much risk. Obviously, the risk just increases when you're talking about $100 million pot instead of a one-off little project or something fun to engage your audience. So someone's got to be first, though. So I guess they're the ones taking the dive.
I want to push a bit because the whole part, like, I loved this announcement, right? I think NZXT makes some great products. I'm a big fan of some of their cases and things like that. Like, they make great, like, CPU coolers, like that. They are very strong in a number of categories, and I think they make some very, very good products. I think what surprised me was, and maybe this was the journalist taking, creative liberty here, but the headline said not, NZXT raises $100 million for PC gaming hardware. The headline was NZXT raises $100 million for PC gaming hardware and gaming lifestyle brand.
Yeah.
And sort of the business question I have for you guys is, why does everything need to be a lifestyle brand? Why wasn't this good enough as a PC gaming hardware company and just owning that, right? And making really great hardware? Why does it always need to be a lifestyle brand? And I don't know, Jimmy, if you have thoughts on that.
Yeah, 'cause I've also been a fan of these guys for a long time. I can tell you they've been bookmarked on my Chrome browser forever. I have a couple of friends that have these builds, and big fan of what they do. And also, I think I just want to say, it's worth mentioning. They've been around for before 2004, just doing what they've been doing up until this point. That's really commendable, right? That's hard to do, to stay in business for that long in such a niche space and to do it successfully. So, hats off to that whole organization. And to the point, like, why does everything have to be a lifestyle brand? Maybe that's just the catchy word that gets the dollars these days. Maybe, Holodeck is going to be this media company and lifestyle brand. We'll pivot in the next 6 months.
I think it is. Is it not?
Are we not already a lifestyle
called
brand?
Holodeck Media.
It's such a vague catch-all, and without seeing what that looks like, it's hard to even comment on it. I'm looking at their products online right now, from not just these custom builds and peripherals, but to like this collaboration they did with Mass Effect and some desktop organizers and things. And I don't know what that means. I think what it all boils down to, and I love giving him credit because we're a big fan of Clinton Sparks on this show. Clinton, a good friend of Paul's and mine, and Clinton said months ago, he goes, the way hip hop was the nexus of pop culture for the last 20 years, that's going to be gaming for the foreseeable future. And I think when you put that back in your mind and you look at what anyone is doing in the gaming space, it all starts with attracting culture, attracting a community, right? And then pushing that community in whatever direction you're running with, whether it's education, like our guest on our show today from Evolve Play, or tomorrow, depending on when you're listening to this podcast or the live show, education or merch or content creators. It's again, it still starts with community. So being a lifestyle brand, I mean, I don't know, gaming is the lifestyle, I suppose. And it's just such a vague catch-all that I think we all find disagreeable. But it doesn't take away, I don't think, from the fact that this is a great company doing great things for a long period of time. And I have every confidence that they're going to be able to do something cool with so much money.
How much of this do you think was the journalist, and how much do you think here was the company's own sort of marketing department? I'm curious.
That's a great point, because like, for example, when I joined up with XSET, the journalist put on the headline, esports expert, Jimmy Barata joins XSET Gaming. And we all just rolled our eyes because, as everyone who listens to the show, no one's an expert in this space. It's all getting made up as it goes along. It's a new space where, call me a strategist, call me anything else. So I think some of it is definitely, a thumb-stopping kind of clickbaity thing for sure.
Former Mastro's server, Jimmy Barata. That's an inside joke for everyone.
Let me read some of these guys. Matt says this is basically a better version of 100 Thieves, be a hoodie org and also a hardware manufacturer, and just slap your cool logo all over those products. I agree. Like, in some ways, I get more excited about the hardware companies, even though they're phenomenally more difficult businesses than the orgs even, right? Like, you have to deal with returns and the hardware that doesn't work and all kinds of, like, building hardware and selling hardware is not trivial at all. Matt says, no need to mess around with esports teams like 100 Thieves or FaZe Clan. Totally different businesses, Matt. Chris says, Corsair did 100 million IPO last year and they have a firm hold on market share. Lifestyle is just the new term for branding. Yeah. Chris, that, if anything, that makes my point even stronger, which is like, I love Corsair. I love NZXT, right? I think these are great companies that make great hardware. But like, I personally wouldn't put their logo on my backpack, right? Like, I think they're known for their great products more than their brand. I would argue 100 Thieves or FaZe Clan is far more likely to make money off just their brand. I don't know if you guys agree with that.
I mean, it's a good point. What I'd say is, maybe they're trying to change that. And one of the cool things about what they're doing, or about what I had shared earlier, I think, in terms of cultivating that community and then pointing them in a direction. These guys have 125,000 people in their Discord right now, and I think that's just. I mean, we all know how hard that is. It's a lot, especially for a niche, custom PC company. So again, maybe they're trying to change that brand, that image, and get on more backpacks. Maybe they'll do a collab with FaZe. We don't know. They did a collab with Mass Effect. So who's off the table at that point? Really, not many people.
Guys, I wanna move on here because this next story was specifically requested by I think it was a message sent to our Twitter account, and it's a topic we've discussed before, but I think it's definitely worth revisiting because there's more information now. By the way, before I move on, I'll just mention Trent said lifestyle brands working on their ICO to offer governance via DAO. Yes, we have buzzword soup over there. So the next topic here is really all about Dr. DisRespect. And if you guys remember, there were rumblings, there were rumors that he was going to do his own game studio. Then some details came out that it was going to be influencer-centric. Now we're hearing more. There's a name to it. And so this headline here is Dr. DisRespect launches AAA gaming studio Midnight Society. Prominent streamer Dr. DisRespect announces that he has created a brand new AAA game studio called Midnight Society. Basically, according to this, it will be a AAA studio competing with games on the same level as other AAA developers, and they will be partnering with a bunch of creators. So they're gonna be working with influencers and creators in the space that will be very involved from, I think they call it day zero kind of development, where from the very beginning they're getting feedback from the community and from these influencers. According to this article, we don't know yet what Dr. DisRespect is going to do day to day, but they're guessing because of his involvement, it's obviously going to be a first-person shooter of some kind. I'm curious, now that we've had some time to think about this, and there's a little bit more detail, and at least there's a name to it now. And the question we got on Twitter was, what do you guys think of this, right? Like, does Doc's studio here have a chance of success? And what do you guys think of this sort of day zero model where they're involving people from the community in decision making literally from the get-go, right? So it's an integral part of the development process. Lindsay?
Yeah, I'm happy to go. I don't want to keep being the first one to answer, but I don't know how I feel about this. On the one hand, obviously, if you're building a game that is meant to be streamable, then it makes sense to include influencers, but there's such a small portion of the gaming community that actually streams. I'm just not sure if including those opinions from the jump is going to be helpful or hurtful. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of streamers themselves also look for different things in games. So you're never going to be able to make a game that makes every single streamer happy. And then you're in this like weird limbo where you're also not making a game where necessarily gamers are happy with it because it's sort of built with the opinion of streamers in mind. So I don't know. It obviously depends on how this goes, but I tend to think it's a too many cooks in the kitchen kind of deal. I am skeptical on whether or not it will work out. If it does work, it'll be beautiful and perfect and amazing. But I am skeptical.
But here's the frustration, right? Like the gaming community constantly on a daily basis is like, you're not listening to the players. You're not listening to, like, go into any Reddit, go into any forum, go into any Discord server. The huge amount of complaints you get for whether it's World of Warcraft or New World or Apex or Fortnite or what, like, pick literally any game on the planet. There's a community of people who are constantly saying, you're not listening to the players. You're not doing this, right? These guys come out and say, hey, we're switching up the model. We're going to be talking to the community before we've even written a line of code, right? And talking to the community every time we write a line of code. I'm paraphrasing, right? I'm exaggerating a little bit for effect here, but shouldn't everyone be celebrating this? Jeff, I don't know if you have thoughts on that.
I didn't take it that they're going to be talking to the community about every line of code. It's just like, rather than listening to a bunch of game developers, they're going to be listening to a bunch of streamers. So it's, it's not to say, like, I think it's probably not fair to say that the people who normally develop games aren't gamers and don't have like very, very valid considerations about what makes a fun game. So to me, I was thinking this differently. Like, I did not think that in any way having a bunch of streamers involved in making the game would make the game a better game. I thought about it in from like more of a business sense of, hey, you're kind of verticalizing like doing a vertical strategy where you're kind of owning the marketing arm, because we know right now one of the best forms of marketing is word of mouth. Streamers, these people have massive communities. So having them on board as kind of owners of the game and having their name on the game, would that make the game more successful because you sort of have the distribution arm? So to me, that was what I thought. Yeah. In terms of whether this game is going to be good or not, I think you have to say odds are this game probably never even gets made. And that's simply taking a step back from an industry perspective.
Hot take.
Think about how many games. Yeah, I mean, think about how hard it is to build up a AAA studio. We have no idea how many developers they have. We have no idea if they have any sort of, real game development management chops, how much capital they have. Like, to me, I think I would even take the under that a game ever comes out of this studio. I'd put that at probably 50-50. and odds are it ends up not being very good. And that's nothing against Dr. Disrespect or any of these guys, because obviously they're incredibly successful and built amazing brands. It's just mathematically, like, it's really damn hard to build a good
Yeah.
shooter game. So mathematically probably won't happen or will not be very good. So but it's interesting.
If I could jump in, unless Paul, you wanted to redirect after
No,
that.
go ahead.
But yeah, because I've had mixed feelings about this, and it just hasn't sat right with me since I read about it. And I think Jeff and Lindsay did an awesome job kind of explaining why. I've been familiar and been aware of certain games, to Jeff's point, that never even made it the distance. Games that had big names attached to them, akin right next to names like Ninja and Tim the Tatman. And these games just, they got buried. They had funding, and it didn't happen. The user feedback doesn't bother me so much from a too many cooks in the kitchen perspective, because in tech, and you rely so much on that kind of data and insight that it can be helpful, so long as you keep it at arm's length, I think, and don't make it like the core premise of your business. But what actually bothers me most, or another thing that bothers me that I just wanted to add, because you guys had great points already, was Dr. Disrespect. We get bored to death with people talking about authentic this, authentic that. And, one of the reasons why he has such a great following, I think, is because he doesn't really care, right? He does whatever he wants. And he's great at FPSs. He's definitely an authority and a known name in this space. But I think once you create a company like what he's trying to do here, he has ulterior motives in making the game sell now. So even if you have user feedback, if I'm watching him play it, it's not just because he loves playing the game and because it's fun for him. It's because he has a financial interest in that game becoming popular. And I think that does something that undermines the game or the brand in some capacity. So I don't know, there's ways to look at it and say, yeah, this makes a lot of sense. Oh, I mean, if you want to jump in, go for it.
No, Jimmy, I'm just curious if you're on Jeff's side in terms of, like, would you take the other side of the bet there with
would you
Jeff's hot
invest
take?
in this? Let's say that way. Would you?
That's a good
invest
question too. Would you invest in this studio?
I'd have to see, what they're offering and at what stage. But I would say, and I'd have to see a little bit more under the hood. On its face right now, it would have to win me over. I'm on the probably won't invest. Probably agree with Jeff that I'd be surprised if it gets made. Part of this. But definitely, I know I don't root for anyone to fail. Would love for this game to get made, to see it compete with Splitgate. That's the other thing. FPS is such a hard nut to crack. Even Destiny, where you knew all those guys had their foundations with Halo, and even Destiny had a hard time getting out the gate because managing funding, right, managing deadlines, meeting expectations. These are multiple $100 million problems to solve. And so to be the first time or a first time company doing that, I understand he has a team of experienced leaders there, but it's still a new company, it's still a new product, and that's a very hard thing to win over, I think. I probably wouldn't invest.
Let me just read these comments, and then I'll give you guys sort of the answer I gave on Twitter, which I think continues to be my take. I hear the arguments, but I'm interestingly enough, I think the game will get made, but I don't. I'll get to this in a second because I do have a take on this. Trent says, would Rogue Company be considered a flop? Wasn't Dr. Disrespect tied to that game? Trent, I don't know what the sort of the business deal was there, but it was mostly just him helping with one map, as far as I know, and some cosmetics in game. Like, it was more a licensing of his look and his brand, more than it was like a game where he had ownership or he was involved in the development of the game. Like, I'm pretty sure it was just that one map and some of the cosmetics. Chris says, Splitgate is loved by streamers and hardcore gamers, sold very little. The doc is great. He's still a niche of a niche. Co-signing Jeff's undercall. Yeah, look, for me, the reason I don't like this is different, because I think the doc is more than just a niche of a niche. I do think he's a little bit bigger. And my issue, though, is with this day zero kind of approach. And day zero, because just to be clear, guys, at least based on everything I've read, this is not just about them involving influencers and streamers. This is about them involving the whole community, right? Getting feedback from hundreds or thousands of people, not just 2 or 3 big streamers. And there, I always worry when anything is built by committee, right? Like if you don't have a singular, clear vision with a visionary at the helm driving it, I just think you're likely to end up with like a muddled soup or stew that doesn't taste very good. Lindsay, I think, said it. Too many cooks in the kitchen. I prefer, at least when it comes to game development, just because I've seen it work more often, is classic like Steve Jobs era Apple, where we make what we think the customers need, not we make what the customers tell us they want. And I think most of the great games that have come out just not because they involve the community up front, right? Like I haven't seen any evidence that this day zero kind of community involvement actually works to make great games. This could buck that trend, but I have very little faith in that model. Let's put it that way. I would rather see someone with a great vision, build a game they believe in that they want to play and put that out to the world and hope people like it than sort of ask 1,000 people their opinion, because I have a funny feeling this is going to be just a nightmare to manage also, right? Like, because everyone's got a different opinion of what's fun, what works, what doesn't.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about, all those competing opinions.
Yeah. Guys, let me just switch topics here. This one, definitely there weren't many competing opinions, and I'm curious if anyone on this panel is going to have a competing opinion. But the headline here, you guys are going to like this one. If 600-hour Ubisoft Ghost Recon helmet NFTs are gaming's future, I quit. So, interesting headline here. If you guys listened to the Meta Business podcast, which I highly recommend everyone do, it's hosted by Jeff and I. We do it every week. It's on the business stories coming out of the metaverse. We talked about Ubisoft Quartz on last week's show, and what's interesting is now more details have come out about Ubisoft's sort of application of NFTs to their AAA games, and so. I love the first sentence here. It says, this week, Ubisoft went ahead with its much derided NFT experiment, culminating in an offering yesterday that seemed almost too absurd to be real. In order to secure the Wolf Enhanced Helmet A in Ghost Recon, you had to have played the game for 600 hours on PC, and even then there were only 250 up for grabs. That's 25 full 24-hour days of Ghost Recon for those keeping score. The idea is once those NFT helmets are secured, there can then be a marketplace where players sell them back and forth within the Ubisoft Quartz system, inflating their value. The other items being sold as NFTs are 2,000 copies of a gun that require no minimum playtime and a pair of pants that only requires 100 hours for the chance to grab one of the NFTs. So I won't get any more into this article, but now that we have more details on Ubisoft Quartz and their integration of NFTs into their AAA games, can someone please defend Ubisoft here? Like, do any of you guys like this? Think this is sort of really visionary?
So they
from
were
a
trying.
slave labor perspective, they're
From a slave labor.
right on in with the rest of the industry.
No, I really do like it. I mean, you're rewarding your players with some really rare items. It's no different than what's already existing, other than like true ownership of this a digital asset that you can sell. Actually, I have a problem with it in that I don't think they're selling enough of these. I kind of liken it to the sneaker market where they come out with these exclusive, Yeezys and Jordans and things that get resold, as this article mentions, right, and inflate their value. And who's not doing the math? There has to be some like known optimal amount that they can sell, that Ubisoft can maybe retain most of that cash, or I don't know, right? It's just like these numbers seem so arbitrary, and maybe that's to generate hype, but I just feel like there's a missed opportunity in not going bigger. It's my same problem with the Gucci Xbox. I wish they
But
sold
isn't that the whole
10,000
point?
of
You
them.
need sort of a lot of scarcity, otherwise it literally is just a digital in-game item that.
But
It's
scarcity
unlimited
between
scarcity.
100 and 1,000, is still the same
Yeah.
effect, right? And then you have 10 times as many in circulation that you can profit from. And also, when it's too scarce, then there's also that like well, I'm never going to get it, so why even try kind of mentality.
That's
So
fair.
I think it kind of also can
The
hurt you.
So the broader question I wanted to bring up, because this is something Paul and I talked about a bunch on Meta Business, and I think also want to hear what people in chat have to say, because it's like, I think it's an incredibly important question as we think about kind of the future of blockchain gaming and sort of play to earn. Do you think we're at a point already in the industry where the broader gaming community feels very similar about blockchain games as they did or do about microtransactions and free to play games? Because the amount of backlash that this game got and kind of the negativity, even from developers at Ubisoft, I saw an article where there was a lot of backlash internally at Ubisoft. Like, are we at a point? And I kind of didn't see this coming, because I had kind of always, maybe had a very narrow focus, thinking people who are gamers or early adopters of Bitcoin and they're into crypto and sort of it's like digital goods. Oh, wow, they're already doing that in games. Kind of thought this would be a very, like, I thought gamers would adopt this and be very excited about this. Clearly that has not happened. So was this just really bad execution by Ubisoft, or is this something of a broader trend that the blockchain gaming industry, which right now is booming and there's hundreds of, literally billions of dollars of venture money pouring into this, is this a market that gamers are not interested in? Like, I think that's something, I wish YouGov would do. Like, that's like a amazing consumer insight study to figure out.
Jeff, it's such a good question, and I would love to see if our chat, first of all, has thoughts, because I don't think we've been able to come up with a good answer. But can I just layer like one thing on top of your question, which is it something that gamers want? But also, why is there so much hate when it doesn't feel that different from what we've already been doing for years, right? Like, and I always come back to my World of Warcraft example and the Frost Saber mount, right? Where you had to do the same quest 1,000 times over. And it was probably way more than 600 hours in total to get something that very few people had. Why was there no backlash? Why is there no hate towards things like that? But you get an NFT helmet and people all of a sudden think this is the death of gaming. Like,
Yeah, I love that.
It feels like, look, I don't know. I don't know if I'm saying I'm a proponent of 600 hours to get a helmet, but why is this eliciting such a stronger response? And is that linked to sort of Jeff's question of, do gamers just not want this, and what's the reasoning behind it?
Also, who are these writers that are criticizing that amount of gameplay when if you go into any game in my Steam library, you know what I mean? Like, that's a walk in the park. Like, I just, I don't know. It's just, that's not what I find objectionable about it, the time played, right? So I think we're all nitpicking at different things here. But I love that comparison, Paul, to WoW. I would even take it a step further and say, what about all these people that are buying, using real money to get fake currency in those MMOs, where you can like buy these Chinese farmers for fake gold and to own fake to buy fake things in the WoW item shop that doesn't have any real value. Your character has this sword, now you can actually buy it or earn something of value here with these NFTs. It's so much better.
The question is, well, I'm not 100% convinced it has any more value, because there has to be a market for it to have value, right? And Chris makes a point here. He says secondary market already showed that helmet was only worth $26. I mean, if you do the math, that's definitely not making minimum wage. Trent says there are different demos for gamers. The gamers that I know that are using legacy hardware are more anti-crypto gaming. And Trent, when you say legacy hardware, I'm assuming you mean PC, although I don't love being called legacy. But Trent says the bleeding edge tech gamers are starving for more of the crypto gaming offers. Interesting. So, there's potentially this argument. I'm curious what you guys think of that there's an actual sort of segmentation of the gamer market.
I just want YouGov to do this. This is so like right up their alley. Tell me everything, YouGov. This is like the perfect study. Oh my God. Yeah. I'm gonna call Ben Parra right after this.
And Chris says NFTs just make DLC look reasonable, and no one likes DLC. Yeah, but it all feels sort of the same. We're just calling things different names. The mainstream gamers don't even know what crypto gaming even offers. Have we already forgotten about Darth Vader in Battlegrounds? I mean, Chris, the offensive part about that in Battlefront, yeah. The offensive part about that was that you should be able to play Darth Vader in a Star Wars game. It shouldn't have been locked behind.
And it wasn't even free
It's a
to
little
play.
bit different from a cosmetic, right? Francois says intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. Interesting. I mean, you have to believe that. I would think that the proponents of this believe that the helmet is going to have value on third-party marketplaces or on Ubisoft's own marketplace, right? I would assume. And the people who don't like it, I'm still not sure why there's hate for it, right? Like it doesn't. You can still go play Ghost Recon without any change in what you're doing. So I don't know. I don't know why there's so much hate, but I think it's something to watch. Trent says legacy hardware. What I mean is later gen consoles and discontinued PC hardware. Got it. Okay. All right, guys. Let's move on. Let's talk about Call of Duty League, because I think it's been a while since we've probably talked about Call of Duty League or any of the Activision Blizzard leagues for that matter. And Call of Duty League in the news here. The headline: Kraft Sports Group reportedly buying Call of Duty League's 12th team for Boston. So according to the new report, New England Patriots Kraft Sports Group acquiring the 12th CDL team slot from Optic and Envy, because when Optic and Envy merged, that slot opened up. And this is the Kraft Sports Group in conjunction. They're going to partner with Oxygen Esports, who's going to manage both the new CDL team and the existing Overwatch League team, the Uprising. So Kraft Sports Group is going to have now, they had been invested in the Overwatch League team, and now they are buying a Call of Duty League franchise. I'm curious what you guys think of this. Is this, is this the sunk cost fallacy? Is this them, pouring more money onto the fire? Or is this genius because they already have a franchise in Boston and this was a great opportunity? Jimmy, let's start with you on this one. I'm curious what you think.
Yikes. Definitely don't think it's genius. It's kind of mind-boggling, honestly. You see we're talking about like a failed Overwatch, everything. I don't even know how to describe Overwatch other than that. And then to just double down, I suppose maybe they just saw a lot more promise in Call of Duty. Maybe there was really awesome discounts and cutbacks in deal terms offered on the second round. It's hard to say what would lead someone to do this. The smartest thing about this article is that it's being managed by Oxygen Esports, because if you don't know what you're doing, like bring someone in that maybe does. And I thought that was enlightened. But I'm a fan of COD Mobile, but I'm not a fan of this team ownership angle, or at least these franchise spots. At least not for Activision Blizzard, because they're just too expensive. And one of their hard sells, if you guys remember, one of Bobby's hard sells here was a split of all the sponsorship revenue. And last I checked, the sponsors were leaving left and right. So I don't, and any of the new sponsors are probably going to be negotiating for a much more competitive rates and deal terms. So I don't know what's appealing about owning a Call of Duty League for Robert Kraft. Other than to Paul's point, maybe it's kind of like when you buy a stock and it tanks, and then you just buy more because you can say, "Hey, it's a fire sale. I can average out my loss over the two of them."
No, let me just get that out there for all the Robinhood traders. Okay, I don't know where you guys learned finance. Averaging down is not a good strategy. Okay, if the stock's tanking, get out. Don't averaging down's not the way to go. Jeff,
and
I don't know.
Probably a disclaimer here that we're not offering
not financial advice.
Not financial advice. So personal.
Yeah, so
opinion
lot to unpack here. First of all, congratulations to everyone involved. Obviously, we're very familiar with Oxygen. Clearly, I think it's worth noting William. The professor is clearly a co-founder of Oxygen, so congrats to William when he listens to this. Also, the Vandervelds, who are friends of mine and colleagues. So that's awesome for them. I think it's a big deal, for the Boston space and for sort of our friends at esports. That's great. I think Jimmy made a great point. Bringing in a team like Oxygen, people that are esports experts, kind of live and breathe this, is a smart move by the Crafts. So I think they kind of got into the Call of Duty League, or sorry, Overwatch League, a little bit sort of on Bobby's word. And I don't want to say got swindled, but they were very early adopters, and maybe were sold a promise by Bobby that didn't really come to fruition. And I don't know that they ever built the infrastructure really to manage that. They're used to managing traditional sports teams. So bringing in Oxygen, smart move, build some scale. Oxygen has, 7 or 8 other teams where there can be shared infrastructure, stuff like that. This is a strategy we've talked a lot about with esports teams being a smart move. I also think they kind of have now staked the claim of kind of owning the Boston area to some extent. Maybe Jimmy, you'll disagree with that. With I believe XZ is up there as well, but they kind of have a claim in the Boston market. And then the last thing I would say, the purchase price for the Call of Duty League team obviously was not disclosed. I don't have any knowledge, but I do think if you're just thinking about this logically from a business perspective, if you were going to be buying a Call of Duty League team, now is probably a decent time to buy one, given the negotiating power you might have versus, a few years ago. So depending on what they paid, this could in a year or two look like a pretty decent steal. If I paint a bullish picture where Overwatch 2 comes out, the Overwatch League kind of like starts to pick up a little bit or even at all, and then Call of Duty gets back on its feet. And if you got the slot for like a few $1 million, I think this could end up looking like a steal when you combine it with some of those other assets. So I think that's a little bit of the case I think that they're going at.
Assuming that they negotiated recently, of course, because this could have
Fair.
been done and locked in and just recently announced. But I agree with everything else.
Yeah. Let me just read some of the comments here. Trent says, "Is this Oxygen?" Yes, Trent, it is. They're the ones who are going to be managing. Trent says the CDL's walking all over their consumers. I'm curious, Trent, what you mean by that. Like, I would love for you to be more specific there, because in some ways I agree, but I'm curious what you're thinking of specifically. Greg says, was there a price announced for the CDL acquisition? Most definitely not, Greg, because I have a funny feeling this was fire sale central. I mean, this is sort of it's not even a hot take. It's just my regular take on this. If it's discounted steeply enough, people will buy garbage, right? Like if you put something on sale enough, that people will buy just about anything. And so I wouldn't be surprised if there wasn't even any cash up front for this, that they just needed to save face. They needed a good piece of news. With Optic and Envy merging, they lost a slot, and an odd number of teams makes for weird kind of tournaments. And so, they needed to fill that fast. And of the people in the room, the Crafts have deep pockets and already were in the Activision Blizzard family. I have a funny feeling this was sort of a favor amongst friends, This was not, I doubt they paid anything up front. I'm sure over time there's going to be some payments, but if I had to guess, that there was nothing up front or very, very little. Chris says Morgan Stanley strikes again. Hand Crank Craft had to have bought a significant discount. No way he spent $25 million. Yeah, I agree. I mean, they only raised $20 million, right? Which was, at one point they were saying Call of Duty League slots were going for $20 million or $30 million or whatever. So if you think the total amount raised in this transaction was only 20, I doubt they would have spent more than, a few $1 million of that on the slot itself, given the cost, the cash burn of an esports team. Greg says agree. Chris says better investment, Boston Market chicken franchise or Boston Market esports team. Time will tell.
Give me a Chick-fil-A in Boston, and that probably could be worth it. Those things are gold mines. That's not even saying anything about the esports investment. This is great. Chick-fil-A, man.
Seriously though, this is a good question, right? Because I think we're universally kind of down on buying a Call of Duty League slot, with the asterisk being depends what they paid, right? Although you're still going to be burning cash, so it's not like it's a profitable business, not at least now, maybe 10 years from now. But there is the argument, and Jeff, I've heard you make this argument, which is, eventually all these teams are going to be like football teams, and the value of the asset goes up over time, so they don't really need to be money-making businesses, right? They can be money-losing businesses, but still be worth hundreds of millions of dollars like 100 Thieves, or billions of dollars like FaZe, or whatever. And so this question's a good one in that, yeah, the Boston Market chicken franchise probably is profitable for the next 20 years, right? Because no one's going to stop eating chicken. But is there a play where long term, did Kraft and Oxygen look at the 100 Thieves round and go, well, we could be worth 460 million too, right? We just need the same. We need to be in the same 7 or 8 games, and we'll be fine. Do you guys buy that argument?
I'm
Jeff?
not sure I buy that argument.
Okay.
I think if we start to see, I mean, I know you attributed it to me, so maybe I should buy it. I think the last part I didn't necessarily agree with, because I do think that, like 100 Thieves and FaZe have brands outside of the league. I think I buy the first part of the argument that you attributed to me. If the leagues start generating, more eyeballs, more streaming rights sales, then and the economic splits maybe get a little better for the owners, then I think it could get to a point where like you don't necessarily need a brand. And the way I would attribute it is, I'd say like the Jacksonville Jaguars have no brand, like literally at all, but because they're in the NFL, they're worth probably about $1 billion, right? And like nobody is a Jaguars fan, like literally on earth. But because they're part of that league and they have one of those 32 franchises, they are worth $1 billion. You could see that in esports if the leagues start taking off more. But in terms of being a standalone brand, like, no, I do not think Oxygen has the same, at this point, standalone cachet or brand as a FaZe or 100 Thieves. No, that's not controversial to say.
Trent says the CDL is so turbulent, the angry fans burning their Huntsman, Empire, etc. merch that they wasted hundreds of dollars on. That's actually a very good point. I didn't even think about that. I guess that's what they're going to do with all that wasted merch. It ends up at your local Goodwill to buy for pennies on the dollar. Yeah, I mean, that's the Activision Blizzard model. It's why I have so many shirts. You just wait till they go on sale for $2.80. Chris says, I'm just here to make Jimmy break. Almost got him.
That was close.
It's tough to make Jimmy break. Chris says, so much for Byron Leftwich starting an esports team, Jeff.
Hey, you leave Byron Leftwich out of this.
Yeah, he's the offensive coordinator for the Tampa Bay Bucks. Now that is a real franchise with some fans.
Also, my brother was his former personal trainer. So
nice. Oh, interesting. Didn't know that.
Trent says the problem is we all know there's no underdog story within the CDL. All the teams are being artificially propped up.
Yep.
Yeah. Look, here's the problem, guys, and I'll wrap on this and we'll move on. What other choice does an Oxygen have, right? I'll make this. I won't pick on Oxygen. I'll make this sort of generalized to any tier 3 org, let's call it, right? Where it's like you're not a T1 org, you're probably not a tier 2 org even. You're sort of an also ran tier 3 org. What do? You don't have many options, right? You either need to get bought by a bigger org, or you need to go for the big franchise slot. And regardless of whether it's a good long-term business decision or not, we can debate that. We can debate if it's good for the shareholders of that business, because it may not be. But what choice do you have to grow? Because I don't think there's any growth in that sort of tier 3 band, right? Like, no one's watching the also ran, Rocket League team from Lithuania, right? Like no one cares about that. And so in some ways, I think this is the only move they had. And I applaud sort of what is a bold move for an org that is relatively unknown, right? They're not a FaZe or 100 Thieves or whatever, or an Envy, or and I think it puts them in a new category. But there's still, in my mind, big question marks about the viability of the business here, buying into especially Activision Blizzard leagues. But time will tell. Time will tell. Chris says, for the record, this is great for Professor and Adam Morrison. Happy as hell for the OG esports people tied to the deal. Yeah, I agree, Chris. Great people involved on the Oxygen side, all friends of ours, obviously, and are super happy for them. But we're still going to debate the business implications of everything, friends or not, and we'll always try and be as transparent about it. Trent says, the fear is that Blizzard strikes down any tournaments that non-licensed tournament operators are hosting, which forces teams to go for a franchise spot. Well, I mean, Trent, obviously, right? Because they want those fees. They want the franchise fees. For Blizzard, it works. For Activision Blizzard, it works. But I agree. As an owner, I would be concerned. Okay, guys, let's move on. We have to do, I think it's about that time, we have to do our gaming chair story. For those of you who don't know, maybe you're new to the live stream. This live stream, in addition to being the hardest hitting sort of business commentary in and around gaming and esports, we are also by far the most well-respected gaming chair reviewers on the planet. And Razer this time is the one with a new chair, believe it or not. So we talked about Razer last week. And this I don't know how you guys are going to react to this. And the headline here is, the Hello Kitty gaming chair was bound to happen. And the subheadline says, hey, if she sells toilet paper, why not gaming gear? It's Razer with Hello Kitty and friends coming soon. They're teaming up with Sanrio, who owns the Hello Kitty name and likeness, for a whole bunch of Hello Kitty and friends branded gaming gear. It includes a gaming chair and headphones. It's obviously pink like this, as you can see. It says for gamers by gamers with Hello Kitty on the back. I mean, not much else to this other than the Hello Kitty tie-in here, guys. Seems to be a pretty run-of-the-mill Razer gaming chair otherwise. Lindsay, do you love this? Do you hate this?
Okay, well, I do love it because I love Hello Kitty. But I would love to... Yeah, oh yeah.
Where does it rank with the tiny chair? The tiny chair is like the benchmark.
Yeah, the tiny chair is still number one. I'm working on getting a picture of my nephews actually sitting in their collection of tiny chairs, by the way. But trying to make a 2-month-old and 8-month-old sit still for a picture turns out to be harder than advertised. But anyways, I actually wanted to tie this back into the discussion we had earlier about moving more into lifestyle brand stuff, because this is such a good way of hardware brands moving into lifestyle while still maintaining high quality of hardware and offerings, I think. And the reason why that excites me is because when you have a brand, I suppose, that starts off as a lifestyle brand, you don't automatically think, oh, high quality hardware with their branding on it. You do think sweatshirts. Whereas when you start off with a great hardware brand and moved into lifestyle, you get, oh my gosh, a super cool and really nice Hello Kitty chair that's going to be of interest to a lot of people who are into content and branding. So I think that I mean, everything I've seen Razer do in sort of this lifestyle brand area, I've pretty much been excited about. Even the silly things like the mobile phone gaming glove and the gum. I think that they've done good little activations where you don't have to produce millions of a product. It doesn't have to sell well, but it's going to make news and it's going to be fun. And some people are going to really enjoy it. And I think they've been really smart about this so far. And I think the Hello Kitty gaming chair is just an evolution of that.
Yeah, no way it doesn't sell out. No way it doesn't sell out.
Oh,
I agree.
For sure sells out. But the gum and the glove, I wasn't as sure about.
I would argue Hello Kitty, I mean, maybe this is not a hot take, has a bigger fan base than the Lamborghini one, potentially. No.
Yeah.
Is this a bigger sort of addressable market for the Hello Kitty chair than the Lamborghini chair?
Well, I mean, Hello Kitty just has such strong lifestyle branding as it is. I own Hello Kitty pajamas. I had a Hello Kitty lunchbox. There was a billion things I had growing up that were related to Hello Kitty. I can see young people wanting this. I can see older people wanting this because they grew up with Hello Kitty. There's just such a more accessibility in this brand than there is Lamborghini.
I mean, is it unfair? The more, it used to be that a lot of these tie-ins were gaming related. right? Like a lot of the tie-in was like a chair that was, you know, CS:GO themed, or a chair that was like, you know, had a certain colorway from a game or something like that. Like more and more we're seeing the way brands activate is through gaming chair licensing, it seems. Is it just because there's all these niche markets for all these, you know, these brands, like these partners, these licensing partners? I think Hello Kitty also just appeals to a female market too, which seems definitely underserved, even in gaming chairs, right? Not to mention in the broader market as a whole, but just in gaming chairs. Pretty much Razer's the only one who's done stuff, right? They do the cat ear headphones. They do the pink, you know, wireless gaming mice. They have
Sid
the
Kitten
Viper in
has
pink.
those, right?
Yeah, so
I
like
think.
there's a lot there's a lot of like Razer has some legacy here. I like this one, guys. I you know, I wouldn't buy it myself, but
So I don't know why you have a hard time with a lot of the Fortnite activations, because it's kind of the same thing, right? It's just slapping different brands on their digital products, and here, whether it's Lambo, Hello Kitty, whatever it is, it's just a clever pairing of two worlds, and you know, offering that as a consumer good. So I just love it because Razer's already done this successfully with Bathing Ape, which is a very well-known Japanese streetwear brand. Everything on that wasn't just a chair, by the way. There were hoodies, there was a headset, all of it sold out instantly. That Razer mask, you know, that they did, that's not a co-branded activation, but I'm just saying they just seem to know really well what their fans want. And I can't remember the last Razer drop of something unique that wasn't sold out. Even those masks they've restocked 7 times and they keep selling out. So I would bet my money on most any Razer activation that they did, and I love this chair too for all the reasons Lindsay expressed.
I just
sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
I just want there to be a bulldog chair. Why can't there be a bulldog chair? There's every other kind of chair.
There could be, chair. Right? There must be. Yeah, isn't Georgetown the Bulldogs? I'm sure Georgetown has
They're actually
has
La
like
Jolla,
merch.
which I don't know the difference.
Is it La Jolla? Okay, sorry.
But their little mascot is a very cute little bulldog. But I guess, Jimmy, do you know, like, is La Jolla the same thing as a bulldog? We'll have to figure that out.
So. There's also the Butler Bulldog.
Bulldog chat. Yeah.
Yeah. There's the Yale Bulldog. Lots of bulldogs.
Trent says the fears that Blizzard strikes. No, sorry. Wow, this is actually going to sell like hotcakes. I think the next offering will be Murakami. Murakami is everywhere, like literally everywhere. We did a story today on Meta Business that talked. Well, we didn't talk about Murakami specifically, but that mentioned him. And I feel like Murakami has decided that gaming is going to be their beachfront here. Chris says Mad Cat Sanrio fighting stick was an instant sellout almost a decade ago. Smart play for Razer. Chris, did they actually do a Hello Kitty fighting stick? Because I don't remember. Trent says Hello Kitty greater than Lambo. The math checks out to me. Well, I wasn't going to do this story, but I'll just mention it. You want to see the state of business for streamers. Speaking of Lambo, here you go. xQc shows off $320,000 McLaren sports car on Twitter. He bought himself a nice McLaren 720S for $320,000, which there's no story here, guys. I just want to say streamers, good business if you're at the top like xQc is. Chris says, yep, I have one runs out the room. You have a Hello Kitty fighting stick. That one I struggle a bit to see the intersection of the two, but to each their own. Guys, I just want to mention before we continue, this live stream is very generously sponsored, supported by YouGov. YouGov produces the absolute best data on gamers, games, esports, the games people play. They are absolute leaders in producing very actionable data you can actually make decisions around. So if you're operating in or around the gaming industry, if you are looking to get into the gaming industry, if you work at a brand, if you're in marketing, if you're even just thinking about what maybe you could be doing to take advantage of gamers in the gaming industry, I highly recommend reaching out to YouGov. They will help guide you. They will give you all the data you need to make great decisions. Go check out yougov.com. I'm going to put the link here, yougov.com/gaming-esports. If you haven't already, there's a bunch of free reports there. There is a ton of interesting data that they just give away for free. You can also watch any of the episodes. We call them YouGov Insights. There's segments of the live stream we've done where we've highlighted some of their data. So you can go find those on YouTube. Go look for YouGov Insights, Business of Esports. Really just go show them some love. Like I said, they're tremendous supporters of the live stream. If you want to be connected to them, please reach out to me, to Jimmy, to Jeff or Lindsay even. We can all put you in touch with the folks at YouGov and help facilitate an introduction. But they are really good people and highly recommend you talking to them. All right. Chris says, your thoughts on the YouGov Tim the Tatman impact on Chipotle? I have a meeting with a casino org tomorrow, and I would love to hear your thoughts. Chris, I don't know if you guys know. Chris, I don't know what you're referring to. YouGov Tim the Tatman impact on Chipotle? Was it, Chris, was it a data point that they put out? If so, can you link it? Because I don't think I saw it. But I know also, like, if you guys follow Ben Paro or Nicole Pike or YouGov, like on LinkedIn or Twitter, they also put out, like, every so often, very relevant, like, timely data points. Chris, okay. We can do that. Do you guys want to do part 3 of the influencer?
Yeah, I liked that.
I had a bunch of stories, so I wasn't sure if we wanted to get to that today. Give me 1 second.
Can we do the lightning round at the end?
Yes, we'll do that's a good plan. We'll do lightning round.
Lightning round.
Okay, hold on. So I'm going to give you one other story to talk about. I will bring up part 3 of the influencer thing in the meantime. Hold on. I want you to argue about this, which is hang on. Let me put this up here, and then I'm going to load up the YouGov Insight segment. Phil Spencer believes Kinect was one of Xbox's biggest contributions to gaming. If you guys remember, Kinect was the little camera that would, they used for some of the games. 2 questions for you guys to discuss amongst yourselves. One, is he right? Do you agree with Phil Spencer? As head of Xbox, I guess his opinion on this carries some weight. But 2, the broader question of, do you need to be does a product need to be a success for it to be a major contribution to gaming? Because I would argue Kinect was not that successful, right? Like, who's still here is using a Kinect? Probably no one. Jeff, start with you. Let me load up YouGov in the meantime.
I guess to answer the second question, I don't think that necessarily it's a prerequisite that, like, something has to be successful to make a contribution. Obviously, things can come before their time, and maybe, like, for example, I may be butchering this, but wasn't the Dreamcast like fairly early on online technology and being connected? And obviously that the Dreamcast never amounted to anything, but clearly some of the things it brought in were important later. You could think of other examples, not necessarily in gaming. Like, I remember when I watched the 30 for 30 on the XFL, which was awesome. They talked all about how a lot of the camera technology and the production and sort of how they created stories around the league, like that all was brought in to the NFL after the XFL folded. So I think, as just a general business thing, your point is correct. On the Kinect, I will pass the line on that. I'll take my pass because I'm not really sure.
Jimmy?
Yeah, I had a Kinect. I always had a Kinect, actually, from when they offered it to, I can't even remember when I stopped using one. I don't play on my Xbox anymore. But to your point, it doesn't have to be a success for it to be a contribution. It just had to have had a positive impact. And I love the Dreamcast reference, Jeff, because I loved my Dreamcast. And there were some great titles on that from, I believe, like the original 2K series and Soul Calibur, which I used to play on my Dreamcast all the time. It was a great, great console. But anyways, I even used my Kinect with the Xbox Twitch app to start streaming and having my video on the stream because I didn't have a sophisticated setup at the time. I eventually like elevated and got a proper webcam. I got an Elgato capture card, the external one that you can use with your console. But all that kind of pointing back to the Kinect and facilitating, I think, a new way to think about not just portraying ourselves on stream, for console gamers that weren't even thinking along those lines while PC gamers were, but maybe Phil Spencer's talking about also the game innovation, right? And having these move you type games where people would get up and dance. The Kinect would monitor them and mirror that with their avatars. That Sony I think replicated with those kind of joysticky things. Sorry, I was never big on Sony except for PS2. I don't know.
They were like ice cream cones. They looked like
they were like giant, ice cream cones or microphones even. But still, to Phil Spencer's point, Kinect was awesome. It didn't work great. I remember there was some sports games, and Jeff, maybe you did this with Madden or 2K, but like you could use the Kinect to take a picture of yourself and then let it render for 4 hours, and then you would have a custom character in the game that looked just like you. And for people that played, the My 2K profiles that loved creating that, it was kind of like an RPG element of playing 2K. You could have this basketball player that looked like you because of the Kinect. So the tech was innovative and ahead of its time in terms of what it hoped to accomplish, but it definitely pushed the conversation and the way of thinking forward, right? In terms of what are we getting out of these consoles, and what should we be thinking of for what we want next? Lindsay, I see you unmuted, so hop in.
Yeah, I was going to say on his point on accessibility, I couldn't remember what the Kinect did in that area, but it was one of the first voice-enabled devices, and it had a lot for people who had difficulty, who had vision impairments, or who had, there was several other ones. Like they made it very adaptable to people who were in wheelchairs to read motion and all kinds of other things and that was pretty novel in the gaming market at the time that the Kinect was released. So I do think that he's right in that it made a big splash in terms of highlighting those communities and actually creating a product meant for those communities. Do I think it was the most revolutionary product of the past decade? That's where he loses me a little bit, but this
he said one of, so I give him
an Xbox, right? Like,
yeah, and it's fine. I mean, he works there, and it's good to brag about your own stuff. I say that as someone who announced the drop of their podcast at the very beginning of this, so not hating on him too much for that. But yeah, I think that he's right in that the Kinect it wasn't the product that was going to carry us to the new millennium, but it was an important step forward for the industry as a whole and led to a lot of other cool innovations, especially when it comes to voice technology. So pretty neat.
Yeah, I think like the accessibility stuff was mentioned in the article, Lindsay, so you're spot on there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but also just I think people don't realize like the motion tracking that, like, in the when we have these discussions around next generation gaming and more immersive experiences, like a lot of it is the talk around VR, and I think one of the major things that Oculus, like the Quest and Oculus brought to the world was the ability to do motion tracking without having the satellites in your room, right? Like without having to put cameras around a room. But the Kinect really sort of pioneered that motion tracking in general in a consumer gaming device, right? So what will be sort of a foundational element of next gen VR and even current gen VR, I would argue, was really pioneered here. Trent says, I've heard there was a good amount of commercial application use for the Kinect. I just don't know why it never worked for me. It was really really tough to get working correctly. Like, you're spot on, Trent. Half the time it did not work that well. Trent says, I tried to use the Kinect for facial scan in NBA 2K. It made me look like a swamp monster. Trent, I think that's every facial scan in NBA 2K. If you've ever watched xQc go through that process every time he's played a new NBA game, it's actually hilarious. The clips of him on Twitch doing that are really funny. 4X Esports says, Kinect had a great hacker following for the PC kit to be used in many interesting scanning, gesture, and motion sensing applications. Yeah. This is what I think that's what I was alluding to, that the hardware and that functionality really was quite groundbreaking in a consumer device. Usually that tech was, orders of magnitude more expensive. All right, guys. Like I mentioned, I just want to sort of intro it. Like I mentioned, this podcast, this live stream, this weekly news show is generously supported by YouGov. And we are going to do a quick YouGov Insights segment this week where this is actually part 3 of the report that YouGov produced. The report was called The Power of Gaming Influencers. And this report they made freely available. So if you go to the link I sent you to, you can go get it there, yougov.com/gaming-esports. But there are some really interesting findings that came out of this report. And I just want to bring up a couple of them here. So hang on, let me share this screen. All right. Let's start with, Chris asked for Chipotle and Tim the Tatman. So I'm going to get to that, but I just want to start with a couple of other things first. And the first is brands that are mentioned in Twitch chat, because I thought this was interesting in terms of which brands have been the most successful in getting sort of attention in Twitch chat. And so here, basically, they looked at all of the mentions of brands, food and beverage brands, mentioned in Twitch chat globally between September 2020 and August 2021. Okay. Do you guys have a thought in terms of which are the big food and beverage brands that were mentioned most in Twitch chat? I can tell you the number one answer is not a major like global brand by any means.
Food and beverage brand?
Yeah.
I want to guess the Hot Pockets is up there.
I hope
So
Mountain
you're
Dew
a
is
Hot
up
Pockets
there.
guy.
I was gonna guess Red Bull or Mountain Dew or
I
Doritos.
think Mountain Dew's
but
up there.
I'm guessing that's not the case.
Red Bull is number
Doritos.
9 on the list, interestingly
Oh, dang.
enough.
That's way lower than I
Totino's
would've
Pizza
thought.
Rolls.
Not Totino's, but Doritos is number 3.
Oh,
Nice.
I
I
just
can
said
see that. Doritos own.
Pepsi number
Doritos.
2. I'm gonna put this on screen in a second. Pepsi number 2. Trent actually got it right. G Fuel is
Trent.
the most mentioned.
Huh.
If you look at this, guys, hang on, let me zoom in here so you can see.
Cool.
Fanta, number 8.
And if you look at the spread between number 1 and number 2, G Fuel almost twice as many mentions as Pepsi. Like they have done a tremendously good job, I would argue, at getting engagement in Twitch, on Twitch. I don't know if you guys are surprised by any of the other names. If anything stands out to you, I was not.
Fanta's pretty high. I mean,
Yeah.
I think-
But Fanta's a big global brand,
Yeah.
yeah,
right?
not
Can you
compared to the
scroll
other
down? I
ones.
want to know the 10th. I can't.
Atella throws me.
Is that Cheetos?
What's that, Lindsay?
What's the
Yeah,
10th
Cheetos,
one?
number Cheetos.
Yeah, is it Cheetos? Okay.
The 10th one is Cheetos, yeah.
Cheetos.
But like I said, what's interesting is the gap, right? The gap between 2 and 10 is not that big, but between 1 and 2 is quite substantial, which I thought was
Yeah.
interesting.
Good for G Fuel. It's impressive.
Yeah, G Fuel has
Yeah.
done a really good job. Let me move on here, guys. What the next thing was, again, let's stick with beverages and snacks here. Okay. What they asked here was the likelihood that you were going to buy a beverage or snack in the next 30 days. Okay. Like how likely you are to buy in the next 30 days. This is in the US and just Twitch users, indexed against all US 18 to 34-year-olds. Okay. So let me bring this up here so you can see. What this says is, if you're a Twitch user, it seems, right, you're much more likely to buy a snack or beverage in the next 30 days, or at least admit to it. Jeff, I know you have thoughts on this.
Oh no, I don't know if I'm making it faces or something. I'm surprised at the number of people. Like it's just odd to me that few people were buying snacks or beverages.
Yeah,
Maybe I
who
don't
in
know. Am I
America
like
is
crazy?
not
Like
buying
like
snacks?
people don't like only 50% of people buy snacks. Like
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
What's
keep in
going on here?
mind,
Who are these?
this is
people?
18 to 34, so maybe they're not the main sort of buyer for their household, or
I
Like-
bought
like-
more
like you-
snacks when I was that age. I'm still that age, actually. I'm literally 31.
but as a Twitch user, and let me just I'll read sort of the conclusion here. It says, no coincidence, YouGov profiles data shows that Twitch users in the US are more likely than general 18 to 34-year-olds to purchase both beverages and snack foods in the next 30 days. With such high penetration rates among this audience, brand mentions connected to advertisements or sponsorships appearing during live streams are just as common as viewer-driven conversations spurring from organic mentions, streamers eating snacks, etc. Which it makes sense, right? Like in a lot of cases, I would guess a lot of those mentions are not bought, right? Are not actually paid engagement. Trent says, I'm surprised that Nutter Butter isn't up there. Trent, why? That's oddly specific. All right, let me get to the next one here. The next one looked at similar thing. Instead of snacks and beverages, it dips into cookies and chips/pretzels/savory snacks. Okay, and the question here was, do you consume this at least one time a week? Okay, and what's interesting is, again, Twitch users consume both more cookies and more chips, pretzels, and savory snacks than US Twitch users, US 18 to 34-year-olds overall, right? So if you're a Twitch user, you will consume more cookies and more of these other snacks than the 18 to 34-year-old segment overall. Lindsay?
This is really playing into a lot of stereotypes that I thought as an industry we were trying to move past. Like when I read this study, I'm like, oh my god, this is the gamer sitting in his mom's basement eating Nutter Butter and like drinking G Fuel and like playing games.
So the conclusion,
but it
here
makes sense.
Says,
the data makes sense. The fact that it makes sense.
Like I said, it says Twitch users 8% more likely to consume savory snacks than general 18 to 34-year-olds, and more likely to eat cookies as well. So, but again, if you're a brand, this is the kind of, and you're looking at where you should be spending your ad dollars, right? Clearly, Twitch for snack, food, beverage brands is a really strong place to be, right? Better than putting up a TV ad. And I think that's always what's fascinating to me, is how you take action on the data. Trent says they spent a ton of money on advertising on Twitch with OTK. Interesting. I'm fixing to get a snack.
You and me both, Trent. Who is lying about not eating chips during the week and not buying a snack in the next 30 days?
I'll tell you who's lying. 52% of people.
Yeah, all of America, all of Twitch users, they're all lying.
Do we we can look, I don't want to go into this because this is like way too specific, but what's interesting is just the level of detail with the YouGov data. Like they could even see how like Oreo and Nabisco US purchasers, like right down to the very specific brand level, and how again Twitch users index against 18 to 34-year-olds in general.
Wow.
And it says, like, look, not all cookie brands have the same success rate activating alongside Twitch streamers. If you look at the data, right, Oreo lapsed purchasers are less prevalent on Twitch than Nabisco lapsed purchasers, right? That's someone who hasn't purchased in a while.
Interesting.
So you can get right down to sort of the specific brand level, which I think.
Do you think this study was commissioned for like Oreo and or Nabisco, or is this something that someone at YouGov was like, I'm very curious to find out, like, the differences between Oreo and Nabisco users on Twitch? Because I mean, probably
question.
The former, I would imagine. I'm not trying to make a joke of it. I would think like it's the kind of thing a brand goes to YouGov and they want that data, and then it makes sense for YouGov to publish it. Otherwise, it's very oddly specific on YouGov's part to like get that into the cross sections.
Yeah, I can say, and this is a good sort of, if people are interested to reach out to YouGov, they can really do two things for you, right? They have all these millions and millions of data points that they can slice and dice to sort of answer specific questions you have, right? But they also can do specific studies just for you, right? Like if you say, hey, you don't like, for whatever reason, this is so specific and so out there, and there's no existing data on this, they can go and do that research on behalf of the customer. And I know they've done both. So it is interesting. I don't know if this was something that was commissioned by an outside customer or if this was internal, but it is interesting where it comes from. If you look also, they can measure like net impression, right? So like what percentage of buzz is positive around a brand. And if you look at Oreo buzz, right, among Twitch users, it was over 40% for a significant period of time. Higher net impressions on Twitch versus 18 to 34-year-olds, right? So Oreo does well on Twitch is the conclusion here. All right, we're getting to, I think, what Chris wanted to talk about, and that is the Tim the Tatman and Chipotle activation. And the idea was from Chipotle was they launched the quesadilla. They wanted to leverage Tim the Tatman, 100 Thieves, Booga, and some other content creators to cast sort of this wide net in gaming and introduce this quesadilla lunch. And you could order a Tim the Tatman brisket burrito. And there's this interesting data point they had here, which is if you have ordered one or more food delivery services in the past 3 months. So they looked at everyone who used one or more food delivery services in the past 3 months, because all of the Chipotle stuff was around, ordering it. And the conclusion here was, if you are a game streaming viewer, 72% have used a food delivery service in the last 3 months versus only 51%, which is the national average. And so, again, in terms of the target-rich environment for a company like Chipotle, when you have data like this, you're far more likely to spend on content creators on Twitch or YouTube or wherever who are streaming, because they're much more likely. This is a very significant difference. Much more likely to be ordering from food delivery services. Chris says, so my leading question is, how much is a 3% bump in awareness on that graph worth when hiring those influencers? Impact on Twitch versus impact on general 18 to 34 audience. Curious what you guys think about that. And hang on, let me bring that slide back up, Chris. The one where it was showing. I assume you were referring to the snacks and beverage slide. Which
was it? That graph
point?
he was just talking about, where if you pull that back up, I think the 3% might be wrong on the math. It was 72 versus 67. Is that what you're talking about? That difference?
Yeah,
I think he's talking about that graph we were just looking at.
Graph.
Okay, Chris is saying I'm wrong. Turns out Chris knows how to do math.
So I think this is the graph Chris is referring to, which is Chipotle's current customers. Okay, and here YouGov looked at what percentage of their current customers are US 18 to 34-year-olds versus game stream viewers. And Chris, tell me if this is the one that you had in mind here. But the percent that purchased in the past 30 days. Is this the one you were referring to? Because here you see, percentage of 18 to 34-year-olds who buy Chipotle in the last 30 days, pretty stable overall. What you notice is as soon as they started this streamer campaign, obviously the game stream viewer purchases pick up, and it sort of carries the total, the 18 to 34 total upwards, right? Like, you see how that 18 to 34 line goes from, this is what, roughly 14 to call this, 16 or 17 here at its peak. Is that the 3% you're referring to, Chris? Yeah. Okay. So here's his leading question. I assume you're saying it's leading, Chris, because you don't think it's significant, but the 3% bump there, how do you guys feel about, first of all, the beauty of the YouGov data is you can see differences that are that small, you want to call them, or that, that detailed, that specific. The question is, what conclusion do we draw from this? Lindsay, do you have thoughts on this? Or Jeff, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I mean, obviously, without having all the sales data and knowing what they're spending versus anything else, it's hard to put a number on it and say, kind of answer your leading question. But if we if we start with the premise of they're going to need to spend advertising dollars somewhere, right? Chipotle spends marketing dollars all the time. It sort of makes sense to target this audience, and the fact that they got a 3% bump in awareness amongst an audience that is in their target demographic and very likely to be interested in buying Chipotle. To me, that's a pretty effective marketing campaign, without knowing kind of where they're spending their other dollars and kind of comparative kind of CPMs and costs and all that kind of good stuff that goes into kind of ad tech and marketing. It's hard to like give an exact answer, but I don't think you should look at 3% bump and say like, oh well, that's only 3%. It's not that much, so the campaign wasn't that effective. A lot of times with marketing, you're pulling tiny little levers, and small changes can really impact dollars, a ton.
Yeah, I mean, you also want to compare what that 3% means to Chipotle and how much, it would cost to, to get all these guys for that activation. I like comparing personally, Chris, when you look at the Under Armour drops that The Rock comes out with almost every quarter and kind of seeing what The Rock is able to do for Under Armour stock when his brand, which always gets sold out as well, affects their stock. And then contrasting that not just with this, but also with something like when Ronaldo removed the Coca-Cola, from that platform, and Coca-Cola stock dropped by like 1.62 something percent. And again, slightly different because that one of them is a product line. This is a an activation or a campaign for a food, and then the other is like an individual action. But back to Jeff's point, tying in these celebrities or influencers and their ability to affect or to drive traffic to that brand. Um, in my experience in using influencers for campaigns like this, it's always interesting and difficult because what you see and what I thought that the last YouGov graph showed really well was definitely a spike in engagement, but the harder part is retention, right? It's never whether or not they can move the needle or whether they can drive people to a product. It's whether those people stay when the activation's over. So those are the things that, I'm not sure the nature of the meeting that you have, but hopefully those 3 anecdotes, as well as that one about the engagement, that concept, are some interesting things to think about on how that's applied to your situation.
Well, and to be fair, I had to Google, but the number of 18 to 34-year-olds in the US is 76 million. So 3% of that is a huge amount
Yeah,
of sales for
it's true.
Chipotle. Yeah. So I, to me, like it's so hard. I mean, any marketing spend, it's nearly impossible to measure the outcome, right? Like this graph is probably the most granular look you're going to get. And even then, it's still hard to know if that 3% jump is all from streaming or if something else happened or whatever it is that caused that slight bump. But at the end of the day, it still resulted in 2 to 2.5 million more sales in that age demographic. So I think like, this is the best look you're going to get. It's always impossible to tell exactly the impact that marketing dollars have. And like Jimmy said, it's always impossible to tell exactly what your retention rate's going to be. However, it did have some impact that, considering audience size, is extremely significant. I would be a lot more wary of this if it jumped up by 20 or 30%, because that would be ridiculous. 3% actually seems to be not only logical and reasonable, but it seems to be kind of a good marker for how much the influencer market can kind of push people into actually buying things. That seems to be an extremely, I don't know, real world solution there, or real world jump that I could see happening as a result of this campaign.
Yeah, Lindsay, it's such a good point on just the total size of the market, right? Like when you're also Chipotle size, 3% increase in, and this is not
Huge.
3% increase in sales. This is 3% increase in your customer base, right? So your
Mhm.
sales may, you know, depending how much each customer spends, right? You could be talking about a pretty significant amount of sales and revenue increase. And so, like, I don't think we should just say 3% is insignificant and toss it out. When I looked at this graph, I think for me what stood out, the conversation shouldn't be about the 3% here. The conversation should be about this purple line, right? And proof of what I would call, for lack of a better word here, product market fit, right? Where you have a product and you put it out to this gamer sort of audience, and you go from 3 or 2.5 or 2.5% to our customers here to like a high of over 20% in a span of a few months, right? What this screams to me is they have found the perfect audience for their product, right? Because if the gaming audience, if the Chipotle burrito, whatever, quesadilla, was not the right product for that audience, or this audience was not the right audience for this product, this purple line would have stayed flat, right? And we wouldn't even be talking about the 3%. The fact that there's such a huge jump in that purple line, to me, says this is an audience that embraces that product, loves that product, enjoyed that product, resonated with it.
That's actually such a good point, Paul. Like we were all, I think I personally was so focused on like the one area where they put it out and then it went down. I would love to see this chart zoomed out, because clearly I think the way to interpret this, if you look at it over time, it's like, sorry, can you pull that back up?
Oh, yeah,
it's
sorry.
like, US, basically gamers were way less likely than the average 18 to 25 or 18 to 34-year-old to be Chipotle customers. But then now after the campaign, they're keeping a large number. Like, yes, it did drop, but they are keeping a significant number of new customers. And if you're thinking about that as a brand, like what is the lifetime value of those new customers? It's not just that one-time 3% bump. It's, hey, we brought in literally potentially another 7 to 10% of the population that are now customers over time and are going to keep coming back. Like that could be worth literally hundreds of millions, if not billions, to a company like Chipotle.
Yeah, it's a great point. And like I said, it's proof that this, like the gaming market, was the right market for Chipotle to go after. Because if this purple line was flat, then you could conclude, hey, this is the wrong target market for our product, right? So we either have to try a new audience or change the product up, right? Like you have to make one decision or the other. But this to me was the product and the audience fit here just right to see this, 4x increase in customers. That's not an insignificant amount. Chris, I hope that was helpful. I just want to say big thanks to YouGov. There's a bunch more in this part 3 of the report, guys. Plus, we covered part 1 and part 2 in previous episodes of the live stream. Definitely go check it out. Again, yougov.com/gaming-esports. If you're looking for really actionable data on games, gamers, esports fans, anything in and around the gaming industry, you definitely need to be talking to the folks at YouGov. All right, guys, let's close this out. We do a little bit of a lightning round to close this out. Does that sound good?
Yeah, but it's got to be like 10 seconds or less. Like, we're not doing this whole, you get a minute to respond.
Like, yeah.
10 seconds?
10 seconds.
Yeah, like one sentence.
We're almost an hour and 40 minutes in here.
I know.
We're going to fall asleep.
Okay. Okay.
Kerwin, look at Kerwin. Kerwin might be dead for all we know in the background.
Why do you keep putting that out there? Kerwin's fine.
Kerwin's fine.
He's overheating in the sweater. I don't like the
Okay. Okay. So let's keep it very short and simple. You either you get 10 seconds, you love it, you hate it, and sort of a quick comment, okay? Fair? Can we keep it to 10? And we do Lindsay, Jeff, Jimmy, and then Jimmy, Jeff, Lindsay. So we'll go in order and then reverse order, okay? All right. Okay. Here we go.
So
First story.
Jeff never gets put in the hot seat, and he always gets time to think.
I will juice on anything. You know what, Mr. Judge, whatever you call yourself, judge, jury, executioner, I'm the juice.
The headline here: Henry Cavill would love to have a conversation about being in the Mass Effect series. Supposedly he wants to be in Mass Effect. Lindsay?
I would watch Henry Cavill in literally anything.
Nice.
Okay. Jeff?
I think this is authentic. He's actually a gamer. Normally, I'd be like pretty cynical. Hey, guy just wants to get paid, but he actually cares about this stuff.
I love Henry Cavill. Witcher 2 coming out this weekend. I'm gonna watch it. But for this, I would say, dude, get Witcher to 7, 8 seasons first, and then we'll talk about Mass Effect. Give someone else a try. You're awesome. You own. The shows are great, but maybe give someone else a shot at this one.
All right, I love it. Next one. We talked about this on last week's live stream. All the sort of hoopla around ValkyRae and her revealing the details of her YouTube gaming contract and that maybe it's not going to be renewed, and she was complaining about having to stream. Then YouTube comes out with their Streamy Awards. ValkyRae wins 2021 live streamer, so she wins the big award for live streamer. Who here who here thinks this is a play to yeah, back to you, Jimmy. You like this? And is it YouTube shamelessly trying to get her to sign a contract?
Shamelessly trying to get her to re-sign that contract, without a doubt. Like, what else could this be? It's ridiculous. There's no other explanation. I'd love to hear Jeff and Lindsay come up with some reason for why it's not.
I'll take the high road here. Congrats to her on the award. Hopefully she, whatever she was dealing with in the last couple weeks, she is now over and is excited and passionate about what she's doing.
Mr. Juice on anything takes the high road. Nice. Keep going.
So that one was a dry lemon. There was no juice there. Let's see.
I have a greater issue with the YouTube Streamy Awards. I would like to award YouTube the award for cringiest platform of 2021. That makes me want to vomit a little bit.
Okay, I like that. All right, I love the headline on this one. The Epic Game Store finally has a shopping cart. Use it to buy Tetris Effect, which is now on sale. The feature has arrived 3 years after the store's December 2018 launch. You now can add items to cart instead of just buy now. Everyone thinks this is all that Epic Game Store was missing. Lindsay?
Hey, Jeff has to go first.
No.
Who cares about this? Why do you need a shopping cart? I mean, you just buy now. I mean, they're giving everything away for free anyway. Who cares? Why do they need a shopping cart? I think this is a nothing story, and Epic Game Store is going to the moon.
I didn't even know they didn't have a shopping cart, so that just shows how little I use the Epic Game Store. To me, this sounds like one more step between when I grab my free game, as Jeff just mentioned, and get it in my library. Just one more step now. So obviously you need a shopping cart, but it's just ridiculous. I had no idea they didn't have one, and in 3 months when they come out with another free game that I need, I'll hop on, take a look at it, and put it in my library and close it for another 3 months.
Seems pretty useless to have a shopping cart when most of the games are free.
I like the take. You guys are going to like this next one because I have a very specific question for this one. Fortnite x Marshmallow returns December 14th. New skin and merch. So Marshmallow coming back to Fortnite. They've got new skins and a whole bunch of stuff. Here's the very specific take I want from all of you. Does this do better or worse than the first run? So when all is said and done, when all the numbers are tallied, will this sell more cosmetics than the first Marshmallow collab?
This will do better.
Jimmy, start with you.
No, well, Lindsay already started.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought we started with me this time.
Well, you guys messed up my order.
Oh my God, Lindsay.
No, it was me and then
you couldn't
Jimmy
be
and
more
then Jeff.
wrong. This is going to be down 40% plus if we get data. The user base of Fortnite's way smaller. Marshmallow's moved on. Nobody cares about Marshmallow anymore, and it's just not. There's no novelty. Like the first time there was novelty, I think this is going to not do very well at all.
I'm gonna strongly disagree, and I'm actually gonna take Lindsay's to an extreme. I think and change Paul's question. It's not whether or not it does better than the first Marshmallow event. It's whether or not it does better than any of the other Fortnite activations since then that also outperformed the first Marshmallow event. Because this is gonna do so much better than the first one. I want to compare it to Travis Scott. I want to compare it to Ariana Grande. I want to compare it to the other Fortnite live events that have been crushing it, because that first Marshmallow concert was the first of its kind. And they have a lot of learnings there, and remix songs are always better than the original. So let's see how they remix this concert.
I'm
True.
with Jeff on this
Sequels are
one.
always better than the original. Everyone knows, like Home Alone 2, classic, all these famous Mighty Ducks 2, all the
There's
classics.
nostalgia there.
What do you
There's
have
already
against Mighty
nostalgia.
Ducks 2,
Nah,
Jeff?
nah. I'm with Jeff on this one. This definitely doesn't do as well as the first one, and definitely I don't think outperforms the more recent ones. It's just
Can't
like it's
wait
a
to be
gold
right.
marshmallow helmet. Like,
Can't wait to be right. Yeah, Lindsay.
It's pretty uninspired.
But then Paul's not going to cover it when we're right. He's going to be like, "Oh,
I
that was
know.
another story, anyways. It doesn't make it to the show this week."
All right, guys, we'll do this one last one here. I think, yeah, one last one, and this is a Tesla story. Tesla allows drivers to play video games in moving cars, raising safety concerns. I personally like this gamer freedom, right? If I want to play some Apex while I'm driving, why should anyone stop me? Lindsay,
America.
start with you.
We can start with me because Paul, I'm just so happy that when you escape your children and go play your Tesla game sitting in your car in your garage, you can also go somewhere. And for those of you that haven't heard what I'm talking about, yes, Paul told us at one point that he thought that parents were going to sit in cars to play games and get away from their kids.
They will. You'll see. There's a reason Tesla's selling so many cars. Anti-kid getaways. Jeff, go ahead.
I agree. I mean, as someone, I think, commuting sucks. And for people who drive a couple hours a day, you put on autopilot. I think, playing video games, people are already doing this on their commute, right? On their cell phones, stuff like that. Not necessarily where they're driving, but on trains. So yeah, I do like this actually. I think it's probably is the future.
This is a fun story actually that we covered on our Metaverse TV social accounts. If you guys want to go check that out on all socials, we had a pretty interesting, quick little minute recap about this story. I think regardless of whether or not you're the driver and you're just saying, "Yeah, I'm a passenger," just to play the game, it's incredibly distracting when there's a screen that big and there's something going on there. So I'm not a big fan of this from a safety perspective. I think when cars become autonomous and you don't really need to worry about that, then yeah, awesome. More, let's give us this type of entertainment. But just because you can doesn't mean you should, and there's no reason we need this right now.
Jimmy, you're thinking about it the wrong way. Necessity is the mother of invention, right? If you want the car to drive itself, you have to have some reason for it to need to drive itself. And what better way than wanting to play games at the same time? You just read this. Trent says the car has most safety features than most drivers. Agreed. Tesla drivers are more of a safety concern than the cars themselves. Exactly. Distract them with games so they don't spend time driving the car. All right, guys. That wraps up this week's episode. Thank you guys all for coming. Lindsay, Jimmy, Jeff, all you guys, thank you so much. Guys, just if you love the content we make, share it with your friends, tell your colleagues, your family, whoever, other people in the industry that you know about the live stream. The more, the merrier here. Also, tune into this week's Business of Esports podcast. It'll drop this week. It'll drop tomorrow. Great episode with Kevin Caldwell. And if you haven't already, go subscribe to Meta Woman. Lindsay is phenomenal. As you guys know, on this show, she's even better on Meta Woman. It is so good. Just because it's called Meta Woman, like I said, men, women, everything, everyone should be listening and subscribe to Meta Woman. If you are in this industry, if you're even remotely interested in gaming and the metaverse. And don't forget to subscribe to Meta Business, which is kind of all the fun of business of esports, but much more focused on metaverse business stories, not gaming specific ones. So if you aren't subscribed to all three, would love for you to do that. Leave a review on all of them if you love it. Make sure to follow all our socials. We're Biz Esports everywhere, Business of Esports on YouTube. And as always, guys, thank you. We will see you next week.